The Assembly will hear an address by Her Excellency Sahle-Work Zewde, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. I request the protocol to escort Her Excellency. The Assembly. ክብርት ፕሬዝዳንት እንኳን ደህና መጡ።
አመሰግናለሁ።
Excellency Professor Tajani Mohamed Bande, President of the General Assembly, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, heads of the state and government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, we are facing unprecedented challenges. Climate change is real, posing a real threat to progress, even survival, forcing us to shift resources away from development. Threats to global peace and security are multiplying. Geopolitical and trade tensions, arms races, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, terrorism and violent extremism, poverty and income inequalities are all global challenges that require global solution. Commitment to the multilateralism has never been more urgent. The theme of this year's general debate could not be more appropriate. Mr. President, since Ethiopia's political transition in April 2018, we have launched major political, legal, and economic reforms. We have widened the political space, releasing jailed political prisoners and journalists, inviting exiled political parties to return home and pursue peaceful struggle, revising the electoral, anti-terrorism, and civil society laws, and ending a 20-year conflict. And ending the 20-year conflict with Eritrea. As we look ahead to election next year, this reform is particularly the widening of the political space have built a solid foundation for lasting democratic order. We have also initiated liberalization of our economy, building on a decade of sustained growth. We have recently launched a homegrown economic reform agenda that aims to address emerging macroeconomic imbalances, resolve structural bottlenecks, including the ease of doing business, to stimulate private sector growth and create new opportunities. Inclusivity has been a core element of the policy, and we have made job creation for the use an epicenter of the reform. We are taking firm steps to institutionalize this reform, addressing the huge gap in gender parity, including at the highest levels of government. If you were to close your eyes and think of this 74th GA, who among you would have thought that a woman from Africa would be standing here to address you. It hasn't been easy, but we have laid down a firm base for development in Ethiopia and for durable peace and stability on the Horn of Africa. The rapprochement with Eritrea was a clear demonstration of the capacity of Africans to solve their problems through constructive dialogue. We are working to transform the whole region into an inclusive zone of peace and prosperity. We are confident the international community will support us. In Sudan, the formation of a government of national unity based on last month's political agreement is a very encouraging development. The negotiating parties showed faith in the mediation efforts of Ethiopia and the African Union. The new leadership deserves the full backing of the international community and their efforts to revive the country's economy. We strongly support the lifting of all economic and financial sanctions on Sudan, including removing Sudan from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism. Somalia has come a long way in the recent years, now consolidating state institutions with elections scheduled for 2020. At the same time, Al-Shabaab remains a serious danger. Into the wider region, and a reversal of the progress made with enormous sacrifices from the AU mission in Somalia, AMISOM, and the Somalian National Forces must be prevented. In this regard, sustainable financing and support for AMISOM remains critical. Our partners must recognize this and reaffirm their commitments. With the recent meeting between President Kiir and Dr. Machar, the South Sudanese parties have been taking encouraging steps towards the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. The parties should continue to show strong commitment to increase momentum for the full implementation of all the pre-transition objectives set forth in the agreement. We hope the international communities will double its efforts to deliver on the pledged support. Mr. President, Ethiopia has been resolute in defending global peace and security through our contributions to the United Nations peacekeeping operations for 70 years. I am proud to say that Ethiopia is now the leading troop contributing country to the UN peacekeeping. Our troops discharge their responsibilities with the highest levels of professionalism, dedication, and courage. We're currently working to strengthen the efficiency and accountability of peacekeepers and to increase the role of women in peace and security activities to implement global and regional security architecture, sustainable financing for Africa-led peace support operation. In this context, let me also underline our support for Security Council reform. Mr. President, Africa has to be permanently represented in the Security Council. amount of domestic and foreign investment to create jobs for our youth. We're that's right. Mr. President, Ethiopia has started to register some encouraging initial results on Agenda 2030. We are investing in our people, our human resources, to improve their well-being. We are expanding manufacturing and infrastructure to attract and increase amount of domestic and foreign investment. To create jobs for our youth, we are privatizing state-owned enterprises. To finance our national projects, we are mobilizing domestic resources, integrating pro-poor policies. To reduce poverty and enhance the quality of life, we are sustaining rapid and inclusive economic growth. Ethiopia is expected to be the fastest growing economy in this year. We are in the process of mainstreaming the SDGs into upcoming 5-year national development plans and into a long-term perspective development plan for the next decade. Ensuring access to quality education means less child labor, less exploitation, fewer child marriages, we have just launched the Ethiopian Education Development Roadmap. Building on our significant progress over 2 decades, this focuses on out-of-school children. Many of these are from pastoralist or disadvantaged areas, groups with special needs, or the physically disabled. The roadmap provides for strengthening alternative modes of delivery. It also focuses on girls, as they are still less likely to complete primary education, and on equality, addressing the barriers to education in the classroom or at home. We are increasing education spending significantly. We hope donors live up to their commitments and target and deliver aid more effectively. Mr. President, my country, with more than 100 million people, is perpetually affected by climate-induced drought. It is high time to act urgently and decisively. That is why Ethiopia has agreed to co-lead the Energy Transition Work Stream for the Climate Action Summit. In Ethiopia, we are working on afforestation with a 10-year forest sector development program, a master plan to promote sustainable and productive forestry for green economic growth. This includes plans for planting 4 billion seedlings with a year and a half under the theme 40 trees per head for New Ethiopia. It was launched in May by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed last month. We broke the world record, planting over 350 million trees in a single day. Mr. President, Ethiopia's main aspiration is to move our people out of poverty. We are striving to provide a dignified life for all our citizens. The central element of our vision for sustainable development includes building infrastructure and harnessing our national resources. The grim reality, however, is that today nearly 65 million Ethiopians do not have access to electricity. And the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile is merely to generate hydroelectric power to offer our people an opportunity at least to have supper with a light on. The Nile Basin countries enjoy one of the oldest relationships in human history. We are inseparably linked by the civilization and by this great and noble river. The seeds of our common development were planted thousands of years ago. Our time-tested links through the Nile, which provides us with life, truth, and faith, can deliver a new level of energy and commitment for the betterment of our people. The utilization of the Nile waters also offers a unique opportunity for our transboundary cooperation between the sisterly countries of the region. It should never be an object of competition and mistrust. Ethiopia strongly believes the utilization of the Nile River shall be based on the principles of international law, namely the principles of equitable and reasonable utilization of natural resources and the causing of no significant harm. We have always been keen and committed to the establishment of a multilateral legal regime on the basin-wide utilization of the river. The signing in May 2010 of the Cooperative Framework Agreement CFA of the Nile, following 13 years of negotiations, was the first and only truly inclusive multilateral treaty. The consultations and negotiations, as well as the signing of the agreement on the Declaration of Principles, are testament to Ethiopia's commitment to cooperation in line with the CFA. The remaining technical matters regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam should be left to our experts. In this regard, the technical ministers of Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt met earlier this month in Cairo, and they will reconvene again at the end of September and early October 2019 in Khartoum. We should encourage and give our fullest support to the technical people to produce a scientific and evidence-based recommendation. As we have always said, cooperation in the Nile Basin is not an option, but a necessity for a win-win cooperation and mutual interdependence among the Nile Basin countries. Mr. President, we are fully committed to implement the Sustainable Development Agenda and the Paris Climate Agreement. From our own experience, we know peace and security, reducing poverty, achieving prosperity are attainable. The world does have the resources, the capabilities, the capacity to preserve our planet. But time really is running out. We must accelerate the process to implement and deliver commitments to avoid leaving anyone behind, to provide the policies needed for employment, development, peace, and security. Above all, we must work for a multinational global environment within which we can take all our concerns and interests into account, and in which we can all move forward to achieve our goal of collective security and prosperity. I thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank Her Excellency Sahle-Work Zewde, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the Head of State.